This weekend interview is powered by Shocks, the world-leading open-ear headphones pioneer. Want the most comfortable headphones for running? Check out shocks.com.au.
Black blood in my veins. I found out when I was just a child that your skin can bring you so much pain. Now I hear you say you got the best of both ways. Won't you come and take a walk in my shoes and tell me if you take my place?
All right, this weekend's guest on the Inside Running podcast is someone that I would call one of the most entertaining racers in the Australian distance running scene. Whenever you see him on a start line, you're never sure about how the race is going to unfold. He's a two-time national cross-country champion. He also recently ran 62.05 at the XCR Burnley Half Marathon. Welcome back to the Inside Running podcast, because he has been on briefly before. I remember we called him up for a quick little interview after he won his first national cross-country championship. Seth O'Donnell.
Brady, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No worries at all, Seth. Now, we're recording this on a Sunday, and I get kind of like fascinated about what people do on their day of leisure. Sunday for distance runners is often, the long run, but often the day where you don't have a lot in the calendar. So what's your Sunday looked like so far?
Yeah, you're right. No, I didn't have much on today, so I went for a longer run earlier today. Today we're a week out from the Melbourne half, so I wasn't doing anything too silly there. But then I had some band practice later on. We've got a few gigs coming up, so been hanging out with the lads there and having some fun. But apart from that, not much.
What's more tiring, the band practice or the long run?
Drumming probably takes more out of you than what you think, and especially the other boys are laughing. They just have to stand there, whereas I have to use all four limbs, so it actually takes a little bit more out of you than what you might think. But no, the running's always much more difficult, I'm sure.
Yeah. And a week out from a half marathon, is it like the traditional 90 minutes for you?
Yeah, it's about 90 today, with a couple of pickups as well at sort of half marathon pace, so I wasn't jogging the whole time, but pulled up feeling a lot fresher than what I would usually, that's for sure.
Yeah. And next Sunday, like we were talking on the show, we did a Melbourne Marathon preview episode, which was pretty hard to do because we didn't have any elite fields to talk about. But do you know who you're racing against? You're confident with the shape going into it? Obviously, the Burnley Half Marathon recently, that 62-minute. Who do you think is going to be the competition, and how confident are you going in?
I don't know if that counts, the Burnley one. I'm not sure if it's an official one. So, for all means, it might have been short, so I'm not quite sure. But I think I don't sort of look into the race fields all that much. I know that have to sprint styles will be running. I do a bit of work at Hailbury, and his coach, Craig Mottram, works there as well. So I've been told that Happy will be there. But apart from that, I'm not actually too sure who's going to be there. So, if I find out, I find out, but I'm not going to go looking for it. I suppose I'll find out when I get there.
Yeah, Andy Buchanan's also going to be there. I ran with him last Sunday, and he said he's got his name down. So this is shaping as just like an XCR race for you three boys. Three of the biggest names in the Victorian circuit.
I'm looking forward to it. It'll be good. It's one of my favourite events for Melbourne. You get to finish on the G. How good's that?
Hey, the MCG as well. I know you're a big Hawks man. You would have spent a few Saturday arvos. I guess Hawks played a lot of Sunday games this past season. You would have spent a bit of time in the stands there over the last 12 months.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, we're playing such good footy. We should be playing prime time Friday night every week. Hopefully that'll be fixed up next year. But how good were the Hawks this year, Brady?
I'm a Collingwood supporter, so I did feel like you were a bit of like Collingwood 2022 about the Hawks, just like coming from down the bottom of the ladder, playing this entertaining footy. You had one of our stars as well join you guys. So, I did enjoy watching the Hawks.
Yeah, Jack's one of my favourite players, Jackie Ginnivan. He had a great year, and he'll only go better again next year. And we're only going to go better again. We've got some really good players coming through. Josh Battle, made the move across, and hopefully we'll get Tom Barras as well. We're going to be hard to beat next year, Brady.
I know you are, but the expectation is going to be higher, which I'm always concerned about. Like, maybe a tougher draw, and without getting too much into like footy podcast and chat, because I would love to do a footy podcast with a guy like you. I am, very worried as a Collingwood supporter about the Hawks and how much, because you guys absolutely smashed us at the G. That was the day of Bandura, I reckon, wasn't it?
Yes, so I only got to see a half of that. But, if an XCR race is on, I've got to do my bit, but I'm making sure that it doesn't matter if it's a half a footy or a quarter footy, that I get there, the MCG, to support the Hawks as well.
Yeah. Hey, Seth, with your PBs, I'm just going to read them out for our listeners. I want to know which one you like the best. So 1,500, or not like, maybe the proudest the best. 1,500, 347, 3K, 804, 5K, 1354, 10K, 2842, and the half marathon uncertified course, 6205. I have no question about that course being 21.1K though, but it just hasn't got the certificate. But your official half is 6338, I think, from Gold Coast or Sunshine Coast. Gold Coast, yeah. So when I read them out, like, which one are you the proudest of?
So I think there's two in particular. If we say the half marathon counts, it'll probably be that, because I ran a time that I didn't think I was probably capable of. Certainly didn't go into that race thinking I was going to run that time. So to do that, I think was pretty special, especially on home soil, which is good. But I think the other one is probably the 5K. That was 2 years ago, and it was at a time where I'd set myself to try and run under 14 minutes. And I reckon the first 5K of the summer that I did that year, I might have run 14:20 or something, so about 30 seconds off that. And then I ran a series of runs between 14:10 and 14:20 in the same summer, and I just thought it wasn't going to happen. But then to follow through and do it was important for me. Give me a little bit of confidence. So that's another one that probably stands out too.
Yeah. With that Burnley half marathon you talk about, like, were there indications in training leading in that you were in that kind of shape? And then, like, the second part of the question, you stand on that start line, and I'm talking to you now and spoken to you a couple of times and heard interviews with you before. Like, you seem so calm, but there's this level of aggression off the start line. And I kind of spoke about in our intro, like, you're never sure what you're going to get with you. Like, is that also planned, that you're going to be like, bang, I'm going to cause people hurt from the gun here?
No, I try and keep things as simple as possible on the start line before a race. I don't really think too much about a race, because I probably have a habit of overthinking things. So I've tried to move away from really analysing what I'm going to do in a race. So I think the less I think about a race, the better. I also think that I probably have a natural tendency to go out hard. This is probably why it happens. I don't necessarily get to the start line and go, I'm going to do the first K next time or whatever. It just sort of ends up happening sometimes like that. But I think some of my best races, well, look, I've certainly got it wrong plenty of times, but I think some of my best races I've been going out hard. I think it's a strength of mine, so it's not something that I should, I think, lose. So I've just got to figure out what works best for me, and that'll happen over time with the more experiences and the more mistakes I make too.
I was obviously working at the moment. And was there like a workout leading in that you're like, hey, I'm in pretty good shape here, I reckon I can, I know you said it kind of wasn't expected to go that quick, but did you get any indication in training that you're in very good shape?
Well, the interesting thing is, Brady, I do the majority of my training on a treadmill.
Oh, really?
So it makes it very difficult to try and translate times from a treadmill to a road or to a track. So I'd probably say no. I genuinely didn't have any idea of what I was going to run, just like probably the same as this week too.
Yeah, okay. And when you say you do a lot of your training on the treadmill, is that just workouts, or like you do like some jogging on there too, or pretty much everything?
Pretty much everything at this stage. So, and I didn't intend to get into it either, but this year's been a very busy year with uni placements. And so it means 8 o'clock starts, wherever they may be. So 8 o'clock to 4:30, sometimes 5 o'clock. So it sort of wipes out most of the day. And particularly in the winter, that wipes out most of the light during the day. So if I'm to get to placement on time, I've got to wake up pretty early, and it's pitch black outside. So it was either to run outside in the cold and in darkness, or run on a treadmill. So I had my hand forced in that sense. But I really enjoy running on the treadmill. You can sort of control all the variables. You don't have to worry about wind. You can just really sit in with the paces that you want to run, or the efforts that you want to run, and really just zone in. So I actually quite enjoy it. I know a lot of people would find it very boring, but I'm a pretty boring person, so I don't sort of mind it.
You are not boring. Now, I've got a question for later on, because I think you're like, we do have some type A robot professional runners in our sport here in Australia, and I respect that as well. But I also respect that you've got the drum and stuff going on. You've got the cool haircut. You've got the footy kind of chat. There's more to Seth than just he's a fast runner kind of thing. So definitely never describe yourself as boring again, please. But more on the treadmill stuff. Like, so are you looking at heart rate to judge your effort and stuff, or like just going on feel on there and just pushing it up when you feel good, pushing it down when you feel a bit tired?
I suppose it depends what I'm doing. So if I'm doing like a threshold session, then I'll watch the heart rate to make sure it doesn't get too high. I don't necessarily have a set number, but just to make sure that I'm not working too hard. But I think I've sort of developed experience on a treadmill like anyone else would develop experience in terms of what times they would run on the road for a certain session. So I don't know, if I'm doing K reps, for example, over time I figured out what pace will work for me in that session. So I suppose that's sort of how I've worked it out, and just gone from there. Got it wrong a few times, and then eventually get to a stage where I'm happy with what I'm doing.
Yeah, and music while you're going. Movies. Moose on the weekly show last week was talking about how he watches movies while he does workouts on the treadmill. And I was like, you can't go doing that. That would be hard work. That's my opinion anyway, but he seemed to think it was a good idea.
Yeah, music through and through. And actually, We've got an album coming out. So there's been lots of, so I'm in a hard rock band, and we're making our own music. And so there's been a lot of, putting things together, and the production side of things is quite tedious. So going on the treadmill gives me a really good opportunity to listen to my own album over and over again to make sure we get it 100% right. So I love listening to music. So treadmill provides you a good opportunity to do that.
And there's like a notebook next to the notepad next to the treadmill. Like, do you have to pause it and like make a few like little notes and stuff and jump back on, or you can remember that stuff?
No, it's a feeling-based thing. So, and I actually try and, it probably sounds a little bit weird, but in terms of when I'm racing, and what I think about when I race, I don't think about much other than try and think about music, because it just sort of drives me when it sort of gets tough during races as well. So yeah, I don't think too much. I just like the feeling, I suppose.
Yeah, I had this thought last week, and I'm doing a marathon next week in America, and sometimes when I'll do a lot solo as well. Like I'll go out and do a 2.5 hour, 2 hours, 45-minute long run solo. And I often find the last song I listen to before I start is just in a loop in my head for the whole, like the run kind of thing, if I'll do it without music. And I'm wondering if it's the same for you. Like, have you just got the same like bit going through your head, or you can roll through a whole different album in your head whilst you're running?
So it's quite interesting in the sense that, especially for races, I probably pick 2 or 3 songs that represent my journey as a runner. So as I'm warming up and listening to that music, it helps ground me in the moment, thinking about all the experiences and all the people who've helped me get to certain places and whatnot. So that I've got that in my head, because I think that's the most important thing. That's the thing that I draw most of my inspiration or most of my drive when things get tough during races. Try and think about things outside of just the result or any gratification for myself, but more the joy that the result or the process brings other people, so that way it's more than just me out there in the race. So I've framed some songs around that, and that helps ground me in the moment when I'm racing.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking, yeah, 'cause I had that same thought. The last song you listen to is potentially going to be in your head for a long period of time, and then you've gone into more detail there and to link it back to people who are going to inspire you and get the best out of you in that back end of a race, which is pretty special to, I guess, force those thoughts into your head so when you need them, they're ready to go.
Yeah, that's it. Probably sounds a little bit weird, but I don't know.
No,
It
no,
helps
I think
me.
it's good. I think it's good. Can we stop the weird and the boring chat? We've probably got another 35, 40 minutes here. I don't want to hear that again from
All
you.
right, I'll do my best. Sure.
What about when you said placement? Are you training to be or studying to be? Is it physio?
Yeah, so it's quite an interesting sort of year. And I'm not sure if the uni would like me saying this, so hopefully no one from the uni is listening, but there's a lot of placements that aren't necessarily geared to where I want to take my physio. So I'm pretty confident that I want to work in private practice early on, but we do a lot of hospital-based placements. But that said, it's given me a very wide breadth of skills, which is always useful. And I think primarily, communication and people skills is the most important thing in physio and most jobs. So it's been a very busy but a very rewarding year. That's for sure.
And you're in your final year this year? Like you'll be
That's
qualified
right.
at the end? Yeah, okay. That'd be like any month now, wouldn't it? Like you finish in October, November?
End of November.
Yeah. So is the plan to go full-time physio next year or give running a bit more focus, or is there a chance to become a professional runner potentially somewhere there?
I'll be honest, I've got no idea what the next year looks like outside of, well, I'm just focusing on the next 2 years, 2 months, because I've got a lot of work to do to make sure I get that certificate in the end that says I can be a qualified physio. So I haven't thought about it all that much, but I suspect that I probably won't go into full-time physio just yet. I know a lot of younger physios who are runners do that. I remember speaking to Isaac Hayne, who's absolutely dominating at the moment. I've got a lot of respect for him, and I think he works part-time, and that sort of helps out with his running too. So I'll probably do something similar to that. But as I said, I've got 2 really big months coming up, so I'll just focus on that, I think.
Yeah. Do you think it's maybe not think, like, what's your opinion on trying to become a professional runner in Australia? Like not many opportunities to kind of grab, I guess. It's very hard for someone at your level to take that next step. And I say that for someone who, runs pretty closely with Andy and know the Liam Adams stories and stuff like that as well.
I think it depends on what style of runner. To be honest, I don't know too much about it, but I think given that I'm probably more of a longer distance runner, it's on the world stage, the Australians don't tend to perform as well as what we would do over the shorter distances, such as the 8 and 15. And so we've seen plenty of opportunities, I think, for some of our athletes in the middle distances to do really well and to get back as a professional runner. But I'm not sure if the opportunity is the same for the longer guys, but I also understand why that's the case.
Yeah. And what about when I see you run and I see the half marathons and I see how tough you are at cross country, my mind goes straight to the marathon. Like, have you got aspirations to go there in the short to kind of medium term?
I'd love to be a marathoner. I think as the ultimate form of the sport, but there will come a time when I'll be ready to make the move. I'm not sure when that is, but right now I'm happy doing what I'm doing. So I won't be running a marathon anytime soon, I don't think, but it's certainly on the cards at some point.
Okay. That's good. It's good to know. There's hope for us all out there who are Seth O'Donnell fans and want to see you go to the marathon. The national cross country wins. I feel like the first one was a bit of a shock. And then the second one was like, when we saw that result, it was like, of course, Seth O'Donnell won. We've seen the course. It looks terrible. We know he can run well over terrible conditions like he did 2 years earlier. What is it about those kind of courses that suit you so well?
I don't know. Maybe it's the football background because, playing the mud back in the day. But I'm not sure, to be honest, but I certainly love it. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, I think I was confident leading into the first one. So I think personally it wasn't as big a shock as what it might have been to other people. But I actually think probably the second one, I certainly wasn't going in with any preconceived ideas in terms of where I was going to place. So they're both very special to me, but probably the second one holds more significance, I think.
And when you see the weather forecast, and maybe similar to that shocking day we had at Bundoora as well for the state cross country, like, are you genuinely like excited, going like, this is good, I love this, like this is suiting me down to the ground, or are you still a bit annoyed that it's turning up that kind of rubbish?
No, I love it, but I love all conditions, so I don't look up the weather results because I know I'm going to have a good time either way, I think.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And that's going to suit you, that mentality come the marathon too, because you can get all kinds of things in the marathon, and you're out there for so much longer as well. So if you can deal with that adversity, you're going to be fantastic. Hey, although I've been talking for like 15, 20 minutes about all the good times, there has been a couple of setbacks for you. I know even leading into this cross country, I didn't realise it until I read the media release from Athletics Australia that you had a few heart issues, was it, leading in?
Yeah, it was a bit of a concoction of a lot of things. So on the 11th of August, I ran the half marathon on the Sunshine Coast. I still performed pretty well there. I think I ran 63:50 something, and came second to Liam Buden, who was excellent his last kilometre, just out-kicked me. And then the following day, I was just at the shops, and I was just starting to feel a little bit funny, a little bit faint, a little bit weak, a little bit dizzy. And then next minute I was having, sort of the chest tightness, and just everything sort of came on at once. And, almost collapsed in the hospital. Thought I was at the shops, thought I was having a heart attack. And then sort of I had a few similar episodes on the same week. And I'd since had blood tests, and I had very low iron. So I think that was contributing to it. But I have a heart condition in the background called SVT, which it's not too uncommon in distance runners. And essentially a condition where it's not necessarily too much of a bad thing, but the heart speeds up at a much quicker rate than what it should, and it doesn't slow down. So the best way I'd try to explain it is that when you're running really hard, you can get your heart rate, up to 200. It's different for different people, but let's just say it gets up to about 200. But with SVT, for me, it's gone up to as much as about 240, and it feels different. It feels like your heart's jumping out of your chest.
It'd feel weird too, wouldn't it, in a relaxed setting? Like, you're used to it being high when you're huffing and puffing in the last 100 meters of a race, but being at a cafe and doing that, it must be a strange feeling and scary, frightening.
Weird. Very weird, very frightening, all those things. And I think, and I'm following up with the sports doc, so I'll have more information hopefully soon. But I think the fact that I was very iron deficient would have played a role in the symptoms that I was experiencing as well. So, so I had an interrupted few weeks of training, but I was able to get an iron infusion, which I definitely needed. And then since then, I was able to gradually build back into the training. And I sort of had a 1 week block prior to National Cross where I had to figure out what I was going to do. I was a little bit underdone in the sense that I'd had 2 weeks of not nothing, but in comparison to what I'd been doing, it was pretty much not much training. So I needed to make sure that I was right to the day. So I put myself through my paces. I followed up with blood tests and spoke to a couple of key mentors and whatnot, and made the decision to run. And lucky enough, it was a good one.
Yeah. Who was behind you? Ed Marks, have to. Like, beating some good guys that day.
Yeah, I have to. And Ed, I've got a lot of respect for. Very similar age bracket as well. So it's good that we've got some pretty strong competition. Not just the established runners, but the ones that are up and coming as well.
Yeah, that new crop coming through is banging on the door. How long do you reckon you were running with low iron for? And I'm asking this question as a guy who's had a couple of infusions over the last few years as well. Like, I know, how low did yours get when you said low before, like your ferritin?
I think it was at 13.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure where that sits in terms of what other runners have had, but
it's pretty low, yeah.
Yeah, I was probably a few weeks, I think. But you don't. It hadn't sort of affected my performance all that much because, as I said, the day before I still ran a pretty good half. And then that week of training that I had after the half at the Sunshine, I pretty much couldn't get through sessions, really out of breath, and so I knew something was up then. So it was good. It taught me that I needed to step back a bit and get things right. And once I got things right, then continue where I left off, sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's never happened during a race?
Luckily enough, it hasn't. But it has happened during training sessions now and then in terms of the heart symptoms. But I think I'm fairly fortunate in that I only sort of have these episodes probably about once a year. But whereas I know of some runners who have had their SVT attacks, once a week. But again, when I first was diagnosed with the condition, I was told that if you had to have a heart condition, this would be the one. It's not too serious, just something that needs to be monitored. So that's sort of where I'm at with that.
Yeah, I guess doing a lot of work on the treadmill kind of gives you that safety as well. If it's not like you're 20 k's away from home in the middle of the bush somewhere, like it's someone's close by. Hopefully, if you need it, if you hear the loop sound stop happening, that might be time to check on Seth.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I had to wear a monitor for a month. Nothing sort of too sinister has come back with that, but it was good to have that sort of safety net for the few weeks to a month leading back into training to make sure that everything was under control. So
yeah. And back onto the treadmill training, will you do because it's still a very similar 7-day program, or do you work on a 10-day program, or 2 or 3 workouts a week? What does it actually look like?
Yeah, so I think, well, at the moment I've been training sort of, doing a hard session every second day, pretty much what most everyone would usually do. But leading into the half, I've tried to focus a little bit more on doing some race-specific efforts, sort of modelling my training around how I want to race. So to give you an example, particularly in the last race I did at Run Pre, I didn't close as well as what I would have liked. And so I've been working on that, and I'll continue to work on that. So making sure that I'm doing half marathon based efforts, but also incorporating some faster training around that, so that, when things start to get tough towards the end of a race, I can close a little bit better, because I know that's a key area that I need to work on.
Yeah, I guess when you think about the guys you're racing, like City to Bay, good example when we saw Isaac and Jack close super fast there. You were off the front early in that race too, weren't you? I only seen the photo, and then I saw the finishing, but I don't have a clue what happened for the 12K in the middle there.
Yeah, so I mean that was a bit of a better race for me in the sense that I pretty much ran even splits the whole time, but I just didn't have the legs to go with them in the last K. Now, I mean, part of that is a fitness thing. I know there's no doubt that part of that is the way I raced it as well. So I'm going to take that into account to make sure I learn from that, so I can hopefully not make as big a mistake moving forward.
Yeah, and I guess you've put down so many races in the last couple of years. It feels like everything from shorter track stuff to the half marathon and everything in between. Have you got a list of lessons that you kind of have learned over the years? There's a lot of runners who will probably run in Melbourne. They might listen to this on the Saturday morning, the half or the marathon, or they'll be racing, in the not too distant future. Any principles or lessons that you just have taken on board over the last couple of years that you're this is important for me. I've learned this from another race. I've now got to implement it.
It's tough because I think you have to take each race as its merit, and it's going to be different for different people. But I think you have to look at your best races and see sort of what's in common with them or what you found worked, and then at the same time look at your worst races and sort of see what's sort of common there in terms of what works for you and what doesn't, because it's going to be different for everyone. But as an example, I think that the early part of a race, whatever you want to call it, let's say first half, the first 2/3 of the race, I feel like for me, I shouldn't feel like I'm working any harder than what I would do in the training session. It should feel like a training session. And if it feels like I'm struggling to hold on to a pace, or working really hard to hold on to a pace, or racing too early, then I know on the back end of the race I'm not going to have the legs to finish it off. And so I look at my 5K PB, and in that 5K PB, I think I ran a 61 last lap. And then I sort of go, well, the first 3Ks I did felt really comfortable. Not easy, but comfortable. So there's something to that. And then if I have a look at some of the races that didn't go so well, where I didn't have the legs in the last, I think I did like an Adelaide Invitational where I maybe ran a 72 last lap, which is slower than the average pace that I was running for the whole race. And then I think back to the 2K mark and go, well, it was 2Ks in and I was feeling like I was working hard, and then go, well, perhaps I can learn from that. So I think that's an example that works for me, but it's going to be different for different people. So I'd encourage listeners to think about what sort of happened in their races and see what's in common, so you can take lessons from them, whether they be good or bad.
Eliud Kipchoge and Shox Open Run Pro 2 co-branded limited edition launch. Fueled by a shared passion for excellence, Shox has partnered with legendary marathoner and Shox global brand ambassador Eliud Kipchoge to release this limited edition, offering a combination of superior sound quality, comfort, and versatility. Stunning design featuring NN Running Team colours, logo, and Kipchoge's signature. Open Run Pro 2 is Shox's newest flagship sports headphone. With the best sound quality and comfortable design, Open Run Pro 2 will bring your running experience to the next level. Dual pitch tech for superior sound, open ear design for personal safety, secure fit for worry-free listening, 12 hours playtime for prolonged listening. Purchase the limited edition now. You will get the chance to win one of 3 t-shirts signed by Kipchoge. Check out more details via Shox's official website, shox.com.au. Yeah, and you spoke before about your playlist in the warm-up. Like, do you have any other routines you follow with nutrition, or like how many Ks you're doing your warm-up, or strides, or like any superstition around certain brands of socks or any of that kind of stuff?
No superstitions. I think the warm-up, I just do the same warm-up as what I do with any other sort of session. Just keep that consistent. So maybe 15 minutes and do my strides and do my drills and whatnot. But I think, it's going to depend on the race. I don't try to, I certainly don't do anything new with nutrition. But just making sure I'm well fueled, got plenty of carbs. That's for sure.
And with the, as I said before, like at times you can be a fast starter. I'm sure there's been a few 10K races where you've been around 230, 235, 240s maybe for the first 1K. Like, do you do an extended, like a minute hard in your warm-up, or a couple of 200s or something to really get you on your toes ready to go from the gun?
No, not really.
Okay.
I'll do a pretty standard warm-up.
Just actually hear the gun and you're off. That's it.
Yeah, but and I'm not looking at the watch, so I stuffed it up in the run pre. My first K was way too quick, but again, it'll be something that I learned from. But what happened was I looked down at the watch at 1K, and then I realised how quick I'd gone, and then go, oh well, what's happened now? I think it was 2:35 or something like that. Stupid, but so anyway, okay. I'll learn from that. Yeah, it felt okay. Yeah? Okay. Yeah, but then you get to 6 and 7Ks in, and then when Haffy and Ed put the foot down, I couldn't go with them. So you have to go, well, clearly there's something I did wrong there, and I don't think I don't think they're all that much fitter than me. So I've got to learn from mistakes and go again.
Get those tactics right. What about you do any strength and conditioning, injury prevention kind of stuff? You're big on that? Like, you're a busy man with the uni, the drumming, the band stuff, and then the running schedule as well. You got time for the extras?
Huge on the gym stuff. I've got a really good coach down in Seaford. So I'm at Physi Pro Athletic, and I've got a really good coach, Aaron Callett, and a few others who help out as well. And he's got an extensive background in working with elite athletes, and we've framed a program that around what's going to work specifically for me. So I do a lot of work on doing running-based drills, but also I've introduced some Olympic lifts to try and improve my power output in a way that's been very graded so that it doesn't, increase my risk of getting injured. So we've done it at a really sensible rate. And so I think, I've been surrounded with some really good people down there. So it's certainly been a really big help. So it helps with my injury prevention, but, I want to use it to try and enhance my performance as well. So hopefully I can, use some of the adaptations from it to improve in particularly some of the faster stuff when I'm running.
Yeah, and like 2 times a week, 3 times a week. How many times a week we talking?
Twice at the moment. That's about what I can handle. Yeah. I think twice is a pretty good starting point for most distance runners, I think.
Yeah. What about what's coming up on your schedule after Melbourne Half? Like, do we see Bernie 10 on the roads down there, a bit of track stuff like Victorian 5K champs who playing a few races ahead?
Yeah, so I think the key race is going to be Zatopek in December. So I'll fit in some races around that. But probably in the short term anyway, I probably won't do too much racing. But as I get closer to Zatopek, we'll think about adding some more races in there to help support hopefully a really good performance at Zatopek, because I haven't got it right yet. So I'm looking forward to hopefully doing a lot better this year.
Yeah. And previously you said about some mentors you kind of lean on to ask some questions leading into National Cross. Like, do you have some people with the treadmill training and stuff as well that you'll bounce ideas off, or you're totally self-coached and just, going off your own knowledge?
Yeah. So in terms of my coaching situation at the moment, I'm currently doing a lot of things by myself, but it's overseen by the crew that I've got down in Seaford. And then I think because I especially the next 2 months are pretty big for me from a uni perspective with exams, research, and I've got another placement to do. So I don't sort of have the motivation to seek out a new group yet that's going to work for me. So I'm just happy doing my own thing just for the time being. And I'm confident it's working really well for me at the moment, but there'll come a point in time. But yeah, I think it's really good to have people around you who are not just really good at the training side of things, because obviously that's really important as well. But I think I've got some really good mentors that have always got my best interests at heart and are really good people. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, spot on. Who do you look up to, Seth? And were you a fan of the sport from a young age? Like, did you have posters of runners and stuff on your walls, or was it posters of musicians? Big fan of the sport or not?
I hope this doesn't sound bad, but I was a footy nut. So my dream was to play footy for Hawthorn. And I played footy up until I was maybe 17 or 18, and then COVID hit and I couldn't go back to footy, and then running started up. So up until that point, the only distance runners that I knew were probably Steve Monaghetti, Craig Mottram, and probably Deeks. But apart from that, I had no idea who Stewie was or any of the up and coming middle distance guys. So I hope that doesn't sound bad, but it's just sort of the frame of mind I was in at the time. I was really big into footy, so I didn't know too much about us.
Do you think that's good though? Like, having that balance and not just being 100% running. Like, you got the music, you're obviously massively into Hawthorn, which we spoke about. Even part-time work and stuff. I think there's a benefit in doing those things and having a life outside of running, so it's just not always in your head.
Probably. I think it's hard to tell, but for instance, with races, I never really get nervous at all with races, because I'm not really fanatical about the sport from that sense. The reason why I run is more around the journey and the process. and the people that you meet along the way. So the actual races themselves, they're an opportunity to express all of that. But that's essentially the way I see races. They're an opportunity to express myself. I don't fret too much about the bad things that can happen. So I often don't get too nervous about it. And I can't help but feel that, given that I was withdrawn from the sport for so much of my life, that probably plays a role in the reason why I feel that way, but also in the reason why I don't stress too much about the result.
We need to get you to the marathon ASAP. Everything you're saying is just like this. Get this guy a bib. I feel like the headspace and the body's obviously there, and it's going to be the perfect combination when it comes to your marathon debut. Don't want to put too much pressure on yourself, but hopefully a lot of our listeners are getting as excited as I am there. King of the roads, mate. King of the roads. Don't shake your head. It's what's going to happen next. What about? Yeah, you kind of didn't answer my question before about the people you look up to in the sport. Like you've said a couple. You've said there's people you've spoken a couple of times. You've said I respect this person. Like some competitors you race against at the moment. But like, is there anyone you respect more than others? And you're like, yeah, even just the way they might handle themselves or their progression over the years or something like that.
Yeah, I think primarily the number one person I look up to is Steve Monaghetti, because of how good a person he is. I've been lucky enough to, to work with him here and there over the years, and I just think he's first class in everything he does in terms of his communication and his care and his passion for the sport, but also the people in the sport. So I think he's probably the one that I look up to the most. But in terms of people that are my competitors or people who are currently still running, I've got a lot of respect and look up to what Liam Adams has done for sure, in the sense that, I see him as someone who's been able to achieve so much in the sport without necessarily having the backing or the opportunity that others would. And like, for example, he's run on the Gold Coast last year or the year before, where
he was
able to, which helped him qualify for the Olympics, was, it was unbelievable, really, because I know a lot of people would, need to go overseas and run well in much better conditions and fields and races. I'm not quite sure. I've never run overseas before, so I'm not quite sure what the difference is. But for him to be able to do that, I think is just a full credit to him, especially being his third Olympics as well. So I've got a lot of respect for Liam Adams.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal run. I was there that day. I also ran that day. I was about 12 minutes behind him, so he was probably sitting down having a couple of beers by the time I got to the finish line. But that was like, we're talking 15 degrees, pretty windy, especially the last 5 or 6K was like back into a headwind. I think that 208, I think what helped him massively was the fact that he was at an altitude camp in the US in warm conditions and then came to the Gold Coast. I don't think we see too many Australians run super fast on the Gold Coast because it's just feels a bit warmer from where they're based in maybe Sydney or Melbourne at that time of the year. So I think that worked for him. But yeah, to do that on that course that day, phenomenal. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's unreal. And I think we've spoken about it earlier, but in terms of there's a really good crop of younger runners as well. And I think that's really good because it brings the best out of everyone, in the sense that, having a look at what Haftu and Ed Marks and Isaac Hayne have achieved, just to name a few, in such a short period of time, it certainly gives you the confidence that you can do it as well. But it also, it's almost like a good wake-up call, in the sense that, you need to always be on your toes to be competitive with those types of guys.
Yeah, and I think you chuck the Queenslanders like Timmy Vincent and Liam Bouden in there as well, and obviously the Ed Goddard out of Sydney, and then we're not even talking about probably that very top tier of people who do it for jobs and you might see on the roads domestically and here in Australia. But it really makes it hard to find a race on the Australian roads that offers up some decent prize money, that it's easy to win, because there's like any weekend there's 10 guys who could be fairly decent rocking up getting it done.
Yeah, it's great for the sport, though, don't you think?
Fantastic for the sport. For the sport. Yeah, I think it's And that's why I think Melbourne, this next weekend, like it's just there's stories everywhere, even in the men's marathon field. Like it's talking about potentially 4 Olympians who could, be in the lead pack with a couple of other guys who are that kind of next tier down, like your Reece Edwards and your Ryan Gregson, who hasn't quite transitioned to the marathon successfully yet, but you could have 7 guys at 39K next to each other, just duking it out. Like I think there's storylines everywhere, and it's such a good time to be a fan of athletics and road racing here in Australia. Hey Seth, I've got about 7 more minutes with you. Do you mind if I throw some quick fire questions at you?
Go for it.
All right. So what do you see on your training program and you heavily dislike, but it's good for you? And at the flip side of that, what do you see on your training program and go, I like this workout, I got this nailed today. No need to stress about this one. I'm good at this.
Any form of threshold training is a lot of fun.
Okay.
And I suppose it probably speaks to certainly my better performances in the races that are longer. So I think there's, it's a strength of mine. I think when we get into track season and we start doing, those 200, 400 reps where you're running really hard, some people come up to me and say, I don't know how you run for as long as you do. And then I'll go, I don't know how you can, run as quick as you do. And with, the build up of lactate and whatnot and all the pain that you feel in those shorter distances. Yeah. Full credit to those guys and girls.
It's a different world, isn't it? Part B of that question, are you a broken threshold guy or are you threshold in one hit? So, for example, would you do 30 minutes at threshold or would you do 6 by 6 minutes at threshold, maybe with a minute or 90 seconds off jogging in between?
Bit of a mix, because I think, there's 2 parts to threshold in the sense that it's pace, but also the amount of time that you spend at that pace. So, you could argue that you can do quicker stuff at threshold, but you just don't do it for as long. So I think there's benefits to doing both. So I do a bit of both.
Yeah. Books and movies, Seth. I like to know if there's a book on your bedside table at the moment. What is it? Or you got any book recommendations? Are you a reader?
Oh, I reckon I've started 5 books, in the last 4 to 6 months. I don't know. I can't get them done. I get started and I've just got too much other things on. So no, okay. I'm not into books and I'm not into
time
movies
for books.
Either.
TV shows? You got a Netflix recommendation for the listeners? Anything like that?
No, I watch footy. That's it.
Okay. Are you a footy guy as well? Like you'll watch AFL 360, listen to SEN, the boys talk about footy. Like you consume all the footy stuff or you'll just watch the game?
Well, this year I have because Hawthorn have been doing better. But in the years where Hawthorn weren't doing as well, then no.
You're one of those guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite shooter racing?
Oh, probably the Vapor Fly.
1,
Vapor
2, or
5
3?
threes.
Okay.
Threes.
Were you a fan of the fan of the 2s? I feel like everyone was a fan of the 1s, but not so much the 2s.
I've heard a lot of talk about the 2s. I never tried the 2s, so I'm not quite sure.
Skip the 2s.
I think the 3s are way better than the 1s. What do you reckon?
Oh, that's controversial.
Really?
I think it. Yeah, I think so. I feel like everyone loved the 1s, but maybe by the time the 3s came around, there were so many other options that, like, the 1s were your only option. So it's like everyone wore the 1s and loved the 1s, but then maybe some people have never dabbled in the 3s because they've lost their way. They've gone over to Asics. They're into Adhesino, whatever, Mizuno. Like there's too many options now.
I suppose that's a good thing though, because you can wear lots of different brands and you don't have to worry about that. That now you don't have to wear the Nikes. But yeah, I want to preface I know nothing about shoes, so take what I say with a grain of salt with that.
This is just what feels good. Yeah. Feels good for you. I'm a fan of the 3s. So I ran my marathon PB in the 3s. I quite enjoy the 3s.
Really? So I thought you were supposed to wear the alphas for the longer stuff.
Yeah, that's what they say. But I think, and I also know nothing about shoes, Seth, but I think people that we call them super responders on the show. And I think if you are a bit heavier, you can get a bit more of a response from the alphas. Whereas the Vapor Flies are a bit lighter, and like a skinny guy like me, the alphas are more like too chunky for me. Whereas Moose, my co-host, he's what we call a super responder. He just chucks weight straight through that alpha fly and turned himself into a 214 guy from like 224 guy, I think he was when we started the podcast.
Wow.
So a guy who's really benefited from shoe technology, but he's also trained very hard. I'm just taking the piss here. He deserves all the success he's had. But yeah, that's what I think anyway. That's my opinion. But yeah, also absolutely no idea about that one. Destination race, giving you a plane ticket, a bit of spending money, you can go to any race in the world. What's on your bucket list?
Oh, that's a tough one. I haven't really thought about it too much. Let's go Berlin. That's the first thing that comes into mind.
Berlin Marathon.
You run quick marathons there, don't you? So
yeah, I've run there 3 times, and it's an amazing experience. Like crowds, just like you would love it. There's live bands on the side of the road. There's people screaming at you. There's some real like alternative parts of Berlin, and it's an experience as much as it is a race.
Nice.
And then the history there as well, of course. You know, finishing under the Brandenburg Gate, all that kind of stuff, which is good. Yeah. That's all I got. So, actually, I often ask people, what's one question I haven't asked you that I should have asked you? What's one last thing we need to know about Seth O'Donnell before we finish up?
Oh, that's a good one.
What didn't I get to? What could have I got to? I still want to ask you a bit more about the drumming as my final question. But what's a part of I didn't tap into it today. I missed it.
Yeah, go on. I think look, any questions about music get me excited. I'm not sure if they get your listeners excited though. So
no, so I would just this is a serious music pursuit, isn't it? Like this isn't just you're jumping on the drums with a couple of mates and just like you're playing gigs, you're releasing albums. That's the first part of it, and then I want to ask about the social media drumming after the races as the second part. But this is serious.
It's a very serious pursuit. Yes, like we spent a lot of time. It's taken us 2 years to put together an album. I might even take it back a step in the sense that I never intended to get into a band. I never intended to get into playing drums, just like I never intended to get into running. Sometimes things just sort of happen. And in terms of the drums at school, they make you play an instrument. And, you know, we're all into classical stuff. And I'm like, what's the most interesting thing to play? Drums? All right, I'll do that for a year, then quit. So that's what I did. And then a few years later, I found a love and passion through Led Zeppelin. So then I picked up the drums again and sort of self-taught myself there. And then for something to do in the holidays, the uni holidays a few years back, I went to an open mic night. I was matched with 3 different blokes from completely different areas. And we made up, you know, a concoction of really good music on the spot, and we decided we should get together. So then
that's the band now.
Yeah,
just
so
randoms, 3 randoms put together.
Yeah, so our band name is Adhesino, and the reason why we went with that name was because we had no idea who we were. We were just put together one night, and we just stuck essentially. And then from there we've produced a really good album that I'm very proud of, and so I'm just having fun with that. We're gigging and promoting that at the moment, so a lot of fun.
Okay. And when we talk like tour, you play like different locations, or is it mostly just in like the suburbs of Melbourne, different spots of Melbourne?
No, we're mixing it up. So we're coming to Ballarat. Hopefully, we're coming to Bendigo as well. So we're gonna, go around Victoria, have a bit of fun. So it'll be good.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. And then the second part of it being, who came up with the idea? Because by the way, I love it. That you'll set up the drum kit after you've raced, and then you'll clip like an Instagram reel together of like footage of you running whilst you're just thrashing away on the drums. The bullets going everywhere, high energy. Yeah. It's just this perfect combination of like rock and roll and racing. Where did that idea come from, and why do you do it?
Yeah, so I had a sponsorship deal with a shoe brand, and I had to put social media stuff up as part of the contract.
Yeah,
and I didn't feel comfortable just posting things of me running. I know a lot of people do that, but it just wasn't me. So I wanted to be more authentic. And then, I talk about the feeling of running in the sense about the journey and whatnot, like we spoke about earlier. And I thought, well, that's the same intensity that I bring to the drum. So maybe I could do a video where I sort of incorporate the 2 of them and just set up wherever. And I've got a really good mate in Sammy Murray who was always keen to help me out. So shout out to him, and yeah, we just have a little bit of fun there. It's good.
Oh, so he does the filming and the production for you, puts it together?
Yeah, we put it together. I don't want to work him too hard, but yeah, so he's very good.
This might be a really strange question, but do you think about, like, I only asked it because I was at this like workshop the other week with Lululemon, and we had this guy called Jordan Rogers who we had like a workshop with, and he's a guy in America that does a lot of stuff with different brands and looks at the individuals as the person is the brand. So it's like brand Seth O'Donnell, not so much who's Seth O'Donnell working with, but like what do people think about Seth O'Donnell? What image does he portray? And I was talking about on a podcast the other day how my mind went straight to our marathon women, how they're all run very similar times, but brand Jess Stenson's so different to brand Sinead Diver, Izzy Bat-Doyle, Lisa Waitman. Like they're all on the teams pretty much, Eloise Wellings, but they've all got a different brand. And we've, I'm sure you're a footy guy. Your, brand Petrarca has been spoken about a couple of times over the last month or so in the AFL scene. And then I was thinking about you as well, because you've got this, your brand is completely different than every other runner in Australia, with the drums, with the look, with your racing style. Is it something you think about, or it's just you being you?
No, it's not something I think about, but I think there's a very famous music producer who's worked with lots of different bands, like System of a Down is one that comes to mind.
Oh, is this what's his name? Is it
yeah,
Levy? No, he's on the documentary. I'm looking it up now. Have you seen that documentary on Netflix? It's him and Dr. Dre.
I'm trying
he
to
puts
think
all these people together.
His name's forgetting. His name's Rubens, maybe.
Oh yeah, that's not the guy I'm talking about. I'm thinking of Jimmy O'Vine, but I know the guy you're talking about. He was on Joe Rogan not so long ago. He did the Johnny Cash Hurt. Is it Rubens?
Okay.
I'm looking that up as we go through. This isn't great radio, but people will be all over it.
Yeah, Rick Rubin is his name.
Yeah.
And I heard him say once that the music and that he thinks people should put out is what best represents them, and you shouldn't think about what other people would want you to do, essentially. In that you should see creative projects as like a diary entry. So if you're putting together a diary entry, you wouldn't think about what other people would want you to put in it. You would just put in whatever you wanted to put in it. And so I probably see it the same way. So I don't know if I like the term brand such and such, but I see where you're going with it, and I think that if I'm ever putting something on social media or whatever it may be, I just try and make it as authentic as possible, and then try and put out there whatever I want to put out, and not put out things that other people would like me to put out just for the sake of doing it, or to fit in with a certain ideology or whatever it may be. I just do just be me, I suppose.
Yeah, brilliant answer. Seth, I've had fun today. An hour goes quick when you're talking running and footy and all the other things we've been chatting about. Can we go out with a song? Can I get permission from you? Can we put a song at the end of this episode so our listeners who have just heard you for 55 minutes can hear one of your tracks? Can we do that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I thought you were going to ask me to sing for a minute. So I thought,
no. Wouldn't do that
yes.
to you. But yeah, can we get an MP3 file? Can you just flick me whatever song you want so the listeners can hear how they've just heard about how you work on the roads, and now we can hear how you work on the drums.
Yes, I'd absolutely love that. That'd be unreal.
Amazing, mate. Well, I'll get that off you off air. And thanks again for your time. I know the Inside Running podcast listeners would have thoroughly enjoyed that listen, and all the best for Melbourne Half Marathon next weekend.
No, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
This weekend interview is powered by Shox, the world leading open ear headphones pioneer. Don't forget to check out the Kipchoge limited edition Open Run Pro 2. Visit shox.com.au.
Surround